Just look at your 9 p.m. screen time and that, urgent email you're still obsessively polishing. Let's look at the evidence here. You aren't a perfectionist. No. You're a dopamine detective, addicted to the high-stakes thrill of a self-imposed deadline. I see the scene clearly. The laptop light is the only thing illuminating your face. Your third coffee of the day is cold on the coaster, and your heart? It's doing that familiar rhythmic thumping against your ribs. You know when you're just being thorough, right? Slightly skeptical. You tell yourself that good enough is for people who don't care. But as we examine the fingerprints left on your psyche, the motive becomes much darker than just doing a good job. Firmly, you and I both know that this isn't about the email anymore. It's about the rush. Clinical. We've entered a state of NeuroHijacking, where your brain's survival wiring has been tricked into thinking that a minor typo is a life or death threat. Insightful. You've become a master at creating your own chaos, just so you can feel that temporary relief of resolving it. Dismissive. It's a cycle of high cortisol stress, followed by a cheap dopamine hit the second you find.
Because here is the psychological glitch. To your brain, finishing a task is actually a threat. When you finish, the adrenaline drops. The cortisol levels start to dip. The high of the chase is over. And suddenly, you're left alone with your thoughts and the quiet pressure of what comes next. To avoid that crash, you find new flaws to fix. You create new problems to solve. You extend the investigation indefinitely because as long as the case is open, you have a reason to stay in that high alert, high adrenaline state. You see, you aren't actually addicted to the perfect result. You're addicted to the frantic process of trying to get there. You've turned your professional life into a series of self-imposed emergencies just so you can feel the rush of surviving them. But if we've established that this isn't actually about the quality of your work or your high standards, we have to ask a much darker question. If perfectionism is just the mask, what is the real face hiding underneath? Because if it's not about the work, then what is it really about? We're about to follow the trail into the deepest part of your subconscious to find the real motive. Let's open the dossier on your biology for a second, because this is where the investigation takes a sharp turn from psychological theory into hard physiological evidence.
The question we have to answer now is, how deep does this conditioning go? Because if your brain is literally addicted to the struggle, then just relaxing, it isn't an option. In fact, for someone like you, trying to just relax might be the most terrifying thing I could ask you to do. And the reason why is hidden in a psychological shadow you've been ignoring for years. Since we've successfully identified the addiction, it's time to move into the forensic phase. You see, you aren't just going to think your way out of this. You're going to dismantle the system, piece by piece. I'm handing you the DeProgramming Protocol, 3 tactical shifts designed to rewire how your brain handles pressure and productivity, right? The first step in our investigation is a stress audit. Directly, for the next 3 days, I want you to treat your own behavior like a crime scene. Carry a notebook or a digital memo, whatever's easiest. Every single time you feel that physical itch, the urge to over-edit a simple email, the compulsion to double-check a report for the 5th time, or that tightness in your shoulders when a task is almost done, write it down. We're looking for the exact moment your brain demands its stress hit. Once you see the patterns on paper, the addiction loses its invisibility. You're no longer just diligent, you're observing a neurological reflex in real time. Second, we're going to run a controlled field test I call the B- experiment. I know, the very idea probably makes your skin crawl, but that's exactly why it's necessary, right? I want you to pick one non-critical task this week and intentionally submit it at 80% completion. Not messy, not unprofessional, just good enough. Your mission isn't to fail, it's to prove to your nervous system that the catastrophic fallout you're imagining, well, it isn't real. When the world doesn't end and your colleagues don't suddenly lose all respect for you, your brain begins to realize that its perfection or death survival code is actually a glitch. Third, we have to address your brain chemistry through adrenaline fasting. Your dopamine receptors have been hijacked by high-stakes stress. To recalibrate them, you need to dedicate 20 minutes a day to a completely low-stimulation task. And no, you can't have your phone.
Look, the final lie I need to expose for you, well, it's the most dangerous one of all. It's the belief that your struggle and your worth, they're somehow the same thing. For years now, you've mistaken that frantic pounding in your chest for the actual sound of success. But you see, I've reviewed the evidence, and the conclusion is clear. That stress, it isn't your engine. It's a parasite. When you finally complete this adrenaline fast, you don't lose your edge, you actually sharpen it. Imagine a version of yourself that moves through a high-stakes day with surgical precision. You're no longer rushing because you're afraid of a missed deadline. No, you're moving with intent because you've mastered your internal environment. This is what we call the high-performance identity. It's the ability to achieve more in 4 hours of deep flow than you ever did in 12 hours of panicked perfectionism. You're finally trading that heavy physiological tax for pure, focused mental clarity. It's about being more productive, not less, but doing it without that soul-crushing cost. Case closed. We've spent this time deconstructing the clues and uncovering exactly why your brain was holding you hostage. Now, well, it's time to rebuild. If you're ready to stop being a victim of your own neurochemistry and start becoming a true performance architect, I'm inviting you to join our community. Subscribe to Power of Mindset. We're here to help you solve the mysteries of your own behavior so you can perform at your absolute highest level. I want to leave you with one final question to sit with today. What could you actually achieve if you weren't using your own stress as a fuel source? Think about it. I'll see you in the next investigation.